At times as entrepreneurs we are very clear of what we are doing, why we are doing, but we don't have enough time and space or even opportunities to communicate this to a customer. The need to stand out more exists further and further, so compromising on branding, I mean, it's as integral as your product, because what's the point of making a good quality product if you're not able to communicate it, right? It's very important when you talk to a customer to understand what is it that they're liking, what is their pain point. So when you start looking at your right brain and left brain and then making a decision, it's a far more constructive. It takes time. It's extremely challenging, but a far more accurate decision comes from it. So I think one of the things that we always make a mistake, not just as a company, but as an individual also, we always say, once I earn this much, I will start giving back. I think पहली बात तो ये promise तोड़ दो.
Garbage in, garbage out. That's what my guest on CXO Talks today shared with me. How many brands do you know who swear by the quality of their ingredients and cut no corners when it comes to their quality or quantity just to get better margins? I surely don't know many, except having come across the baker's dozen in the recent times and falling in massive love with their breads and lavash. A look at their packaging, their website, and something stands out. That something is authenticity. And it is this authenticity that intrigued me into getting into a conversation with the co-founder of the Baker's Dozen, Aditi Handa. In a decade-long journey and now selling from 50 owned stores across 33 cities and 2,000 touchpoints and every quick commerce channel, there's a lot that D2C entrepreneurs and brand owners can learn from today's conversation. I relished this conversation while savoring some walnut banana bread by the Baker's Dozen, and I can't recommend this conversation enough if you are attempting to build artisanal at scale. Now, let's hear what this CXO talks. A big, hearty welcome, Aditi. I think this conversation has been long pending, and I'm very happy that I have you here on CXO Talks today. I would have loved to have this in person, but nonetheless, this conversation is going to be a delight, as are all your products at the Baker's Dozen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for formally doing this. We've had versions of this conversation of recording, but now you're finally doing it.
Absolutely. So, let me just start straight ahead. I know that your journey with the Baker's Dozen began in 2013 with your co-founders, where you've actually literally taken artisanal at scale, right? And I
Yeah.
know for a fact that when I started something which was related to artisanal products back in the day, scaling artisanal products was something that did not come naturally to people. It was a challenge, and most people, including investors, would always advise you against it.
Yeah.
Yet here you are, 50 own stores, you're already selling in 33 cities and increasing. You already had across 2,000 touch points, around 600 modern and general trade outlets, and of course, on every quick commerce
Yeah.
channel that exists. So, how did this journey really begin for you?
So I think it started with with a very small dream that we had of making some really good quality breads. We started our entire journey with breads, and we said, can we make the most authentic bread? So if it were a focaccia, can I make the most authentic focaccia the way you would find in Italy, or a ciabatta from Italy, or a baguette from France? And there was a lot of passion to have all of Bombay at that point eating these breads. And that was the very simple premise, कि let us make good honest bread and let everybody have it. And gradually, as the time passed, as our customers fell in love with what we were making, as they encouraged us to do more, where they would say, can you try making a pita? Listen, I really have a requirement for a good burger bun, or can you make a cake, or can you make a cookie? These sort of requirements came from households where they said, I'm buying this product from you, and I want to buy the second product that comes in my grocery basket from you too. And I think that's where we started gradually expanding. Initially, I don't think we were thinking pan India, we were really just thinking Bombay. And customers would walk into our store and say that I actually live in Delhi. I've just come to Bombay to meet my daughter, but I would love it if your products were there in Delhi too, or in Hyderabad too. And I always tell people that I think when like my co-founder's name, he was very ziddy that I want this at scale. We have a fabulous product. Can we go at scale? And I was very ziddy that listen, this is handmade. It must always be handmade. And two things happen when you have two headstrong people. Either everything can just go down the drain, or if you choose to use that energy and say, listen, this conflict is actually going to be productive, then you get to where we are today, which is what we call artisan at scale. So you have a handmade product, you have this dream that Sneh has, that I want everybody in India having it. And that's where the fun lies.
But I also know for a fact that when you and Sneh, and even at that point in time, your brother Siddharth
Yes,
were a
Siddharth,
part
yeah.
of, co-founding this business, none of you come from a F&B background, let alone baking, or ever experienced baking a bread for that
Yeah,
matter. So, what triggered this need, Kier, in a country like India where there is already enough brands, which is where you
yeah,
get breads at like about 40 50 rupees for about 500 gram,
yeah.
whatever, the 400 grams. Where did this need get triggered that we need to kickstart this?
I think this came from a very simple idea that bread, although it's not an Indian product, it's not an Indian staple, but everyone in India is consuming it. Whether this is on the streets of Bombay where you have a ladi pav with a vada in it, and or it's like a daily need like that, or whether you go to a Taj and they will make you a nice sourdough grilled sandwich. It could be any of these things. But bread is a staple that's in our diet on a daily basis, in some form or the other. And we grew up knowing this soft, sweet brown bread which was square in shape, but that is not what is true to bread across the world. That is not true to bread where it's originating from, whether this is France, whether this is the Scandinavian countries, whether this is Germany. Their outlook of bread is very different. The quality was very different, and there is no reason why we shouldn't get the same. Especially now that all of us have this global exposure and we get to taste authentic food from across the world. So we really started from a simple business problem कि इंडिया में अच्छी ब्रेड नहीं मिलती, and for अच्छी for us it meant authentic recipes, it meant hygienic conditions, it meant good quality ingredients. Also, it meant no conjuicy in ingredients. We should never develop a product saying, okay, I will cut a little bit on cost over here and give a slightly substandard. It should be, if you had made a loaf of bread for yourself at home, how generous would you have been with either the butter or the chocolate chips or the seeds? And that's how we want to do it. So that is where we really started.
Interesting. You talked about the quality, the hygiene. I recall my mom used to share this, when I was a kid, my mom used to share about this time when she schools में tours पे लेके जाते हैं, factories पे लेके जाते हैं, right? So one such visit for her was to a bread making unit, and she shared with me a very visual way of making. The way they used to knead the dough was uh,
Yes.
in big drums. People used to step and continue stepping, say, like, with their feet, stumble on
Yeah.
the whole dough and continue just walking over
True.
it, uh, to make that, to knead the dough basically in
Yeah.
huge measures and quantities. And that incidentally also is possibly the reason that a pao is named pao, because it was kneaded with the palm,
Yes.
the feet rather.
That's true.
So, yet, I think you talked about hygiene, you talked about the quality of the ingredients, the way you would cook for yourself. And this is another question that, that actually stumbles me onto the next question, that when it comes to deriving the economies and the unit economics of such a business where you are ensuring that the quality of ingredients is the
Yeah.
best, there's no way that you are cutting short or cutting corners, the economics of the product in a market which is slightly price sensitive are taken care of. At the same time, a demand is generated and there's enough people wanting to buy this and not be price sensitive about it.
So I think the first rule is that whenever you're trying to make a quality product, this could be a loaf of bread, this could be a laptop, this could be a dress, does not matter. You have to have the patience that it takes time to convince the customer that, dear customer, you were spending some money. We are going to ask you to spend maybe 30%, maybe 50%, maybe even double of it. But we have a justification for it. This is not an overnight thing. This is not something where you can just pump in money and expect the customer to understand. They don't understand like that, and they shouldn't. So when we started, I don't think we started this business thinking let's rapidly grow. The whole thing started that we want to make a good product and we want you to fall in love with it. We would do little things like when a customer would walk in, we would not sell them a sourdough, we would sell them a square sandwich bread initially, because that is the shape and size a customer is already used to. So we would say, why don't you try our multigrain over to what you're regularly eating? If you like it, come back. When they would come back, we would say, okay, now why don't you try our sourdough? At times, if we could sense reluctance, we would say, आंटी आप बस ये sourdough लेकर जाओ, पैसे मत दो इसका, आप बस free की लेकर जाओ, because it's something I believe in so much. I have a feeling that if you taste it once, you will buy it again. So even when obviously this what I'm narrating is called sampling, but when we did sampling, na, it was more like, imagine when you have a guest at home and you've hand cooked something you really want them to eat. That was the kind of love and thought we were putting in. This takes time to develop, but once this develops, now customers pass on these messages. Now your organic growth happens, and when you say that, okay, listen, I'm a bit more expensive than what the market is, their justification already exists. They already know it. And having said that, a time comes at scale when you have to start looking at being more price sensitive. But that is what we do is we identify where are the redundancies in the costing. Is the packaging too expensive? Does it add any value? If it doesn't, can we change it? Is the supply chain too expensive? If it doesn't add any value, what are the aspects that add to your cost, and which are the ones that are adding no benefit to the customer or to the product? And once you start trimming that, you realize, okay, I could make a far more price competitive product, and I can now compete with bigger players, still having a good quality product. And obviously, economies of scale kicks in where after a point your vendors start giving you better prices because your quantities are much higher. So you're able to negotiate on basic raw material packaging cost also.
Yeah, I agree. And in this duration, of course, while you did this sampling, you create the trust for the customers, you also started building the brand, right? Uh, and going back to the conversation which we had had before going live with this interview and recording this, I remember one of the first things that you did at Baker's Dozen was hiring a branding agency.
Yes.
I want you to share insights on why that is important for any startup, any brand to start with that.
So I tell you what happens is, at times as entrepreneurs, we are very clear of what we are doing, why we are doing. But we don't have enough time and space or even opportunities to communicate this to a customer. Especially in today's world when there's so many brands that are getting developed digitally, where your interaction with customers is not at a physical level, or even when it happens digitally, it's limited. Your branding, the way you chose to write your logo, the way your packaging is, the way you present yourself, this presenting could be in the way you even print your bill and what's the language you use on something as mundane as what a bill printout is. When we send WhatsApp to them, what's the kind of language we will use and what's the kind of language we will stay away from. All this matters significantly because imagine this is like you getting to know a person without ever meeting the person. So the way we present ourselves, at times we go to an event, and the way we dress talks a lot about who we are, right? The words that we use, the conversations that we choose to have, and the conversations we stay away from. These are all impressions we leave. Now, we in our team did not have any skill set in terms of understanding marketing or branding. We knew we were passionate about business. We knew we were passionate about the product. We knew we technically understood the product, but how to build a brand. And we were very clear we are in the brand building area. ये हमें आता नहीं था. And I think it's important for an entrepreneur to say what we don't know. And if you don't know this, if it's important, then you get someone who knows it, who can guide you through this. And I think that's why we went ahead. And although we started this in 2012, but if I think of now, when there's so much competition, there's so many young people doing so many businesses, the need to stand out more exists further and further. So compromising on branding, I mean, it's as integral as your product, because what's the point of making a good quality product if you're not able to communicate it, right?
Absolutely. Reminds me of a few things that I saw, small elements that I saw on your website. Uh, the fact that you're saying that bread is God for you.
Yes.
And I think that left a very big impression on me, especially as somebody who consumes your products. I am a big fan of your whole wheat bread, to the lavash, to the walnut banana bread, which is there right beside me right now, which I'm gonna take a bite of in a bit. But I completely understand what you're saying, that branding is integral, right? Those small elements which
Yeah.
help you create recall for a customer are so important. If you were to share three insights that you derived in this journey of building the brand, those three key moments, let's say, where you felt that the customer uh, came back and said few things which made you see the importance of having built this brand in the last 10 years. So could you share those three instances?
So I think the first very simplistic thing that we did was with our design agency when we were thinking of what should the brand colors be. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs do this. We start sharing what our favorite colors are, right? Oh, I love a pink. Oh, I love a green. I love a teal. And the brand agency said, why don't we do a black and white?
Hmm.
And we said, why? Because black and white sounds really boring, right? I mean, when there's so many wonderful colors in the world, why would you go for black and white? And they said, no, I think so. There was a deeper philosophical meaning saying that your approach in life is black and white, which is what we do a lot at Bakers does. And when we develop a product, when we communicate its USP, it's very black and white. Either it's wheat or either it's not wheat. There's no midway. Either it's a high quality product and priced well, or either it doesn't exist. So there's a lot of approach that we have, even with our vendors, the conversations we do when we take material from them, when we say, okay, listen, this is the kind of credit period I need. We are very black and white in our approach. So I think that was one bit. Second is where this is the black and white, the simplicity of it will stand on the streets. Because, in Bombay, and this is true for any city, when you have a building which has 10, 15 shops and there are so many colors, the simplicity of black and white helps you stand out. This is not something we totally bought into when they said, but we trusted their judgment because obviously, what's the point of hiring someone if you want to do what you want to do any which way?
Hmm.
And when our first shop was put up and the first signage was put up, which was a black background and white in it, and when you drive past, and we were like, oh, this is definitely true. We must do that. And so we've stuck to the black and white. That was a major insight that came, and we've stuck to that theme throughout. Second, I feel in terms of marketing and branding, what happened is that it's very important when you talk to a customer to understand what is it that they're liking and what is their pain point. And at times, customers share their pain point, but they are unable to actually go to the deeper meaning of it. So they may just say, listen, I had this product and I thought it was dry. But why did you not like the dryness? Why did you not like this? So I think that was another thing that came out of our branding exercise. When you talk to customers, don't take their word as it is. Try to go into the deeper meaning, either by delving with them into conversations, or either just you doing more brainstorming on that. Do they really like this? What do they not like? The third thing was that, and I think this happened for us a bit later, is after about 7 years of the had brand life had gone, we spent a lot of time talking to customers. Why do they like to buy us, and what do they like, and what do they not like? And whatever they like, let us build on that. And one of the things that came out is they loved the fact that we were generous with the ingredients that we put in. They loved the fact that our entire approach was honest and they trusted us even during when the pandemic happened and you have to figure out कि कौन सा product मैं लूँ and कौन सा नहीं लूँ. That trust and love that we had developed because of the passion we had for our product. And we said, okay, this is a strong value system that must exist across the brand. So those sort of marketing insights when you get, it's not just great tools for you to build further, but also a value system that you must develop deeper into the company.
Yeah. And I totally stand by this because I think the authenticity of your product is what continues to bring those customers back and also continues to refer, that word of mouth comes into play only when the product's authenticity, कि यार जो डालते हैं वही बोलते हैं, it matches
बिल्कुल सही
what
बात
you
है, yeah.
are putting across on the label, it matches in what I'm savoring in my mouth. Fair. And also, now that I also think about the fact that it is both you and Sneh, and you're partners in life and you're partners in business. I'm
Yeah,
curious because I see a lot of current day startups which are actually led by couples.
yeah.
How does the dynamic play out? Does it help? To what extent does it help? What are the difficult parts of having a co-founder who's also your life partner?
It's not an easy journey. It's definitely a difficult journey to be a founder with your own life partner. But there is a certain fun in it, which is irreplaceable. Because see what happens is, I'll tell you what about Sneh and me. You fall in love with other person and you say, okay, I want to spend my entire life with him. But what does entire life mean? Because when you go back to work, 10 hours he's away and 10 hours you're away. We don't get to do that, right? We get to be with each other. We get to have the same goal in life and actually see through it. And usually that happens for a couple when you have a child, because that's one goal that you have and you want to raise your child. But ये जो साथ में काम करने का मजा है ना, especially if you have complementary strengths. Obviously, there are arguments on a daily basis. Nobody's denying that. There are conflicts on a daily basis. But I think where both of us understand is this conflict is productive. This conflict leads to something good. It may lead to several discussions before we get to the answer, but the answer is going to be bang on right. And I mean, I love the fact that right before we go to sleep at night, one of us is saying, okay, what's the bank balance like? Are we going to be able to release salaries tomorrow? Yes or no? Or we are saying, listen, I saw this packaging today and I think we can do better. I love the fact that when you go to sleep or when you wake up, the first thought that's on your mind, you can share with your life partner because he probably is thinking the same. So I think it's a lot of fun and it's, I mean, I can't explain, but I think it solidifies the relationship. It complicates it for sure, but if you say that listen, the complication is something we want to address, then it really solidifies the relationship.
Interesting. And I think that's also the
And
reason
it's
that.
not easy. Let me also say it's not easy. It's not easy for us. It's not easy for the team also. I think the team is probably the most confused because of this.
Do you also at times draw boundaries that okay, इसके बाद अभी काम की बात नहीं करनी because work can go on 24/7, right?
So last year, sometime in October, I told Sneh that listen, all the time that we spend together, personal, professional, is always talking about work. So let us make a resolve. And this is the kind of discussion we had probably the 10th time in the 10th year, saying कि अब जब भी बात करेंगे at home, it will be personal discussions and not professional. 3 weeks went away and हमने कुछ बात ही नहीं की. So we said, forget it. This is not going to work. I think it's accepting a reality that both of you want to talk about something that you are so passionate about. And if this person profession is confused, it's okay. I think the only place where we draw a boundary is our time with kids. If we figured out that this is our time with kids, that time we avoid giving to work no matter what. But I think as a husband-wife relationship, those boundaries are all confused, and we've learned to be really happy with it. We've given up on trying to fix it.
And I'm sure that every couple has their own way to navigate through this, but I completely understand where you're coming from. And you talked about complementary strengths. So if I was to ask
Yes.
you, what is it that you bring on board as a strength, and what is Sneha's strength, and at the same time, for people who are looking for co-founders, because there are a lot of
Yeah.
entrepreneurs who are starting out, aspiring entrepreneurs who also happen to be women,
Yeah.
who are looking for co-founders. What are some ways to identify complementary strengths? What is the journey that you took on, or the way it happened for you?
Uh, the thing with complementary strengths and as entrepreneurs is that you evolve quite significantly as an individual, because it's a really difficult journey. It's a very fast journey. So there is no way the kind of skill set you had at the start of the business is the same 5 years down the line. And what is important is, are you complementing each other not just at the start but throughout? To give you an example, when we first started Baker's Dozen, the idea was very simple that I would bake, and anything that required with baking, whether it was purchasing raw material, identifying raw material, QC, developing the product, packaging, sending it to the market. This was my deliverable. And his deliverable was very simple. Whatever Aditi is making, I need to sell. Some of it involved marketing, a lot of it involved sales and distribution, to identify the shop, to negotiate with vendors, payment collections, listing the product, getting the sampling done, etc., etc. Then what happened is 5, 6, 7 years down the line, and I think this really happened in the past 4 years when the business significantly shot up during the COVID period. Since the business increased, a lot of fuzziness happened because there were times when he couldn't do what he was supposed to do, and I couldn't do what I was supposed to do. So we started saying, okay, can this part of production, Sneh, you help me with? I need to buy more equipment. Can you help me with that? Or he would say, okay, this part of now we need to really start doing some brand building. Can you look at this aspect? Also, what happens is when you look at each other's departments, you are far more objective. Obviously, the departments I run, I'm thinking I'm doing a good job. But there are times when Sneh goes through an MIS of it and says, okay, listen, I don't think this cost center makes sense. or I don't why can't we do it like this? Or there are times when it gets me feedback from the market saying that, listen, I saw another company making this product and packing it like this. Why are we not considering it? So I think this objectivity that we can bring to each other's department, at times obviously it comes across as criticism also, but if you can put that emotion aside, that objectivity we can bring, to me that itself is a complementary strength. And I think that's where we've also grown, where obviously departments are still allocated who's looking at whom, but we try to be there for weekly meetings for each other's departments, just to be able to have a more objective view, because at the end of the day there's only one thing: the company must do well, the brand must do well.
Absolutely. I think that as co-founders, you're very much aligned on. I really uh, found this very insightful of you bringing that objectivity to each other, because you're able to have a 360-degree or a helicopter view, if not a 360-degree view, a helicopter view into somebody else's department or
Yeah,
something that they own, and thus being able to give those insights, which probably somebody who's ingrained into doing that activity might not be able to see.
exactly, it's a do or checker thing which you need.
Yeah. And at the same time, I also, heard you saying that how you have evolved over these years.
Yeah.
That takes me back to the time when you started, it was just breads, right?
Yes.
Now you have diversified into a lot of other products, which includes the lavash, which includes, the banana breads, so many other things. But between both of you, how was that decision made to stick to that one product for a very long time and not diversify? Because I see, including myself as an entrepreneur and many other entrepreneurs, we get very swayed by the idea of diversifying very fast, growing very fast.
Yeah.
So, what brought to you that rationale that अभी यही करना है for a very long time, अभी breads को ही deepen करना है, and then what was that moment in time that made you want to diversify?
So there were a couple of things. First of all, we were bootstrapped for 9 years of our business, which means we did not necessarily have this external pressure of investors that you must do this. So we could really own our decisions. And the reason we were owning our decisions is because the business needed to make money to survive. So a lot of your decisions are based purely on the fact that if I diversify, am I adding value or am I taking it away? Second, I think when we started, the passion that whatever we wanted to do, we wanted to be really, really good at it. And now we have a much bigger team who helps us be better. But at that point, we didn't. We were literally just me and a few more people running the show. So we knew that it takes time to get mastery of a subject. So once we felt, okay, listen, bread is something we feel we've not that we've gotten mastery over it, but we feel comfortable enough that we can go to the next level. We did not go to patisserie until then. Now, again, where the complementary strengths in patisserie happened is when I went to L'École in Paris to learn how to make cakes. The cakes that I wanted to make were all these cream cakes, fancy cakes, opera cakes, a shoe bun, stuff like that. And Sneh brought in the reality check that, listen, these products could be great, but the kind of sales distribution we are looking at, the fit doesn't happen. And which meant that I, as a chef, was challenged, saying, "Ki, can we come up with something else which stands out in the market, where you get that little kick that you want as a chef, that I've made something really good and not a regular off the rack mundane product, but yet it fits into all this the business tick marks that it
Hmm.
needs.
What are
It
those
needs to be
business
room
stigmas?
temperature. We needed something which is room temperature. We did not want to go down the cold chain. We wanted a product which is high consumption. So tea cakes are generally high consumption than the cream cake would be. We wanted some. We did not start our cake journey from the more popular flavors like chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. We started from an offset flavor like banana bread. Uh, there was also these tick marks like that we needed. Something which was also not of a very low shelf life, slightly higher shelf life. It made the ease in business much better. So when you start looking at your right brain and left brain and then making a decision, it's a far more constructive. It takes time. It's extremely challenging, but a far more accurate decision comes from that.
Hmm. And also knowing the business that you are in, we talked, a little before this conversation, you mentioned about the
Yeah.
packaging.
Yes.
And I know this is a business where there can be a lot of wastage
Yes.
because of the shelf life of the products by itself, uh, plus the amount of packaging involved. So, in a world where we are talking a lot about sustainability, we're talking a lot about
Yeah.
becoming a little more. careful in terms of the
Yes.
whole net neutral approach to trying to
Yes.
figure out what you can do towards a better environment. What knowing that you are doing a lot in that space and there's a lot of activity from the baker's
Yeah.
dozen when it comes to sustainability, where did this begin, that you want to start giving back?
So in 2019, we moved our manufacturing from Bombay to Ahmedabad. With the simple premise that if we centrally manufacture and send pan India, it was just an easier way to go to this artisanal scale,
Hmm.
where you have a handmade product, but it goes to the market. Now, this is what the product started looking like from 2019, which is extremely plastic heavy.
Hmm.
So the toss up at that point was either we add preservatives and expand,
Hmm.
or either we make it plastic heavy and expand. Both are damaging in some way or the other. When I add preservatives, I am harming your and my body, which I do not know how to replace. I mean, the harm that I've done to your body, I do not know how to fix that harm. So we said that is not something we want to do. We want to make a good product. A pregnant mother should be able to eat it. An infant child who's eating solids for the first time should be able to eat it. We wanted, that was the promise that we had made to ourselves. Having said that, the minute we go plastic heavy, we are harming the environment. Now, for several years, we kept thinking we're harming the environment. What are we going to do to fix it? We started some waste segregation at our manufacturing unit, thinking it will help, but the ecosystem going forward wasn't helpful enough for it to make an impact. So earlier this year, we said now let's take this up as an initiative and a strong initiative commitment we made to saying can we identify what is the carbon footprint of Baker's Dozen as a company pan India, not just the manufacturing, not just the warehouses, pan India, which means the carbon footprint an employee leaves just because he's chosen to come to work, the carbon footprint because I'm bringing a product from wheat and wheat has a carbon footprint in the environment,
Yeah.
the carbon footprint because I sent my product from Gujarat to Karnataka to Delhi, and so on, so on. So we did this activity and we identified that we were at some X tons worth of carbon footprint for FY23.
Hmm.
Then we said, okay, what is it that we want to offset this year? Let's make a 5 year plan. But before we make a 5 year plan, let's make a right now plan. I think we've always believed that bakers doesn't बहुत दूर की मत सोचो अभी जो है पहले उतना करो.
Hmm.
Then if it works out, you think of year 2, 3, 4. And we identified two aspects. We said all the plastic that gets consumed to make a product, whether this plastic got wasted in the process or whether this plastic was there in the final product, let us offset that. So then we teamed up with a company called Recycle, where we said the amount of plastic every month we consume to make our products, can you offset that equivalent somewhere in India, depending on the sites that you've collaborated with? The second project that we took up is whatever is our transport cost. This transport, when I say cost, I don't mean money, I mean carbon footprint cost.
Hmm.
Whatever the transport cost was for an employee to come to work, the transport cost for the product to go from one manufacturing to the warehouse and from the warehouse to the selling point, can we offset that? And we've teamed up with two other companies, WasteLink and Crimes,
Hmm.
who conduct different projects for us to offset this carbon footprint. And the idea is in FY24, the claim we want to make is जितना प्लास्टिक हम कंज्यूम करते हैं हम उतना रिसाइकल करते हैं,
Hmm.
कैन बी प्लास्टिक न्यूट्रल.
Hmm.
सेकेंड इज जितना ट्रांसपोर्ट कंजम्पशन होता है कैन वी ऑफसेट दैट. This offsetting could happen because of afforestation, this offsetting which is basically planting trees, this could happen because of waste recycling, this could happen because of some power plant, energy power plant which is on renewable energy, any of these.
Hmm.
And that is what our aim is this year, which will mean we will offset close to between 10 to 15% of our entire company's carbon footprint.
Interesting. So if you were to actually, consider कि यार, a lot of entrepreneurs who are going into the D2C space, who are packaging heavy, so much, carbon footprint being created. What are some, suggestions that you would want to make that they can integrate at the very beginning of their journey to kickstart the giving back part of their ventures?
So I think one of the things that we always make a mistake, not just as a company, but as an individual also, we always say, once I earn this much, I will start giving back. I think पहली बात तो ये promise तोड़ दो. Even when you are maybe an intern earning a stipend of let's say 5,000, there is enough. You have a little bit to give back, even if it's 100 rupees a month. Because 100 rupees collection करके कुछ होता है.
Hmm.
So I think as a company, we all need see there is global warming that's happening, right? I do not know if my kids will get to see the world the way it is when they are 60, 70. This is a hard fact. This is not up for contention anymore. 5 years ago we were disputing, this cannot be disputed. So when we are making any product as a company, we need to start seeing whatever little offsetting that can happen. If you can do 2%, 2% is still better than zero. And if you say all I'm going to do is 2% for the next 5 years, that is also okay because 2% is still better than zero. But in my belief, what happens, and this is what's happened at TBD, is when this project of giving back started coming now, a mindset in the company changes. And people, your team members get enthused enough about it, saying that, listen, can we do this to offset? Can we do this to offset? Listen, I found out way where we don't have to spend money, but we will still offset. That thought process, when it goes viral in the company, now is where the real fun happens. So I think पहले से ही whether regulation happens or not, you say कि I'm hurting the environment, I'm going to give it 2% का मलहम करके दूंगी ताकि उतना तो मेरा कम हो, whatever version that may be.
Yeah. And, we talk about the 2% CSR that usually corporates should look
Yeah,
at. But this is a great thing to look at a mindset from a founder, which can be led by a founder. Here, 2% at least in some sort, to kickstart that, even a mindset within
yeah.
the team, so that we start thinking about.
It's all about the mindset. Once it happens, this 220 भी हो जाएगा and you'll not realize when that happened.
Yeah. Uh, Tell me about this, that in this journey of having built TBD, what are some of those milestone moments that you feel, yeah, these are three things that
Yeah.
I really feel very proud of? And what are three moments that you feel I could have gone back and done that better?
Oh, 3 moments. I have 100 moments which I could have gone back and done better. But I so there are several. Let me just say the ones that first come to me.
Yeah.
In 2014 or 15, we wanted to change the pricing of a product quite significantly because we weren't making money on it. And we were a bit reluctant that if we increase the price, customers will leave us and go. And the way we went about addressing it is we spoke to the customers where we shared that, listen, we don't make money on this. We want to increase the price maybe by 15, maybe by 20. I can't remember the figure. How comfortable are you with it? And the 100% unanimous response we got is they said, we do not care about the price, just ensure your product quality remains the same. You must have done something right for a customer to tell you that we love your product the way it is, just concentrate on the quality. We will pay whatever money you need so that you earn. I think it's a very personal conversation as a founder when you have with the customer, and it gives you a lot of belief
Beautiful
because that means the
conversation.
customer wants you to do well. The customer doesn't want your company to do well, but you as an individual to do well. So I think that, and this can be extrapolated to so many different meanings in life, but that moment is something I always remember. Second is, I think when the first lockdown happened, this was a major fear factor for us. We did well in COVID, but we did not know we were going to do well. And so the conversations Sneh and I were having is, in a month we'll wrap up this business. What are we going to do to ensure everybody's paid? There is no write-offs, etc., etc. And I think what we as a company learned during the pandemic was that you fight no matter what, whatever the situation may be, even if it's not in, see, COVID was not in our control, right? PNL हमारे control में होता है, COVID नहीं होता.
Correct.
But if you can fight against something which is not in your control and come out of it, there is no amount of no confidence boosting can happen from anywhere else other than this.
Yeah.
वो जो कहते हैं ना, खून दुगना तिगना चौगना हो जाता है to be able to now achieve whatever you've set out your mind to. So I think that really helps.
That you can tell me about the three things that you feel that if I could today go back and change these three decisions or moments in the journey of TBD, I would definitely go back and do this.
Three things. I think there was a period sometime between 2016 to 2019 where we were a bit stagnant in growth, and we should have taken it more seriously. We at times people confuse stagnancy with stability. At times people confuse stagnancy saying that time se sab theek ho jayega. That is not true. You have to be extremely proactive and fix it. Now stagnancy scares me. Every time stagnancy happens, even if it's in growth month on month, forget the targets that you're supposed to achieve. That is not what the driving factor is because you know you can do better. सो स्टैग्नेंसी दिखती है ना तो लोगों को डरना चाहिए एंड यू शुड फाइंड अ वे टू फिक्स इट. Second is, I think, in terms of sustainability. And when I talk about sustainability, I'm not talking about the environment now. I'm talking about your business economics. I think we took business economic sustainability far seriously much later than what we should have. I think so. A lot of entrepreneurs make this mistake. Today, my economics don't make sense, but tomorrow it will. And a very dear friend recently told me this line that spend like your worst case scenario and never bank on hope. I
Yeah,
wish
hope
I'd
is not a
known this
strategy.
earlier. Exactly, hope is not a strategy. So I wish this is something we had known or we had taken seriously earlier. Third is, I think we don't spend enough time with our customers. We You need to talk to customers in person. I think for all the digital revolution that's happening, it does not settle with me. I feel I learn best when I interact with customers in person. These can be small focus group discussions. This can just be randomly going to a store and saying, okay, even if you don't buy my product, you buy someone else's product. Tell me, what is your mindset like? Just enter a shop and speak to an individual. You don't need to make an entire plan around it. I think that is something as a company we need to do much, much, much more.
Interesting.
I mean, that's the foundation we built on, and somewhere I feel in the middle we started losing focus from that.
I want you to double tap on the stagnancy part, Aditi,
Okay.
because more from the perspective of how do entrepreneurs realize that stagnancy is setting in, and what are the ways that once they've identified, can they work out of it and get better and move out of that sooner?
Simplest indication of stagnancy is your sales. If your turnover is not increasing, at least in the ratio you wanted it to increase, you can just say my turnover is going to increase by 1% every quarter. It can be as simple as that. But there must be some milestone you would have set for yourself, right? Okay, if I'm at this turnover today, by this time I want to be here. एंड द रियलिस्टिक टारगेट इज दिस. हम थोड़े एम्बिशियस टारगेट से थे, फिर एक रियलिस्टिक टारगेट होता है. रियलिस्टिक टारगेट तक भी इफ यू सी मंथ ऑन मंथ नहीं हो रहा ना, एंड यू शुड सी इट ग्रैनुअली, इट हैज टू बी मंथ ऑन मंथ. यू कैन नॉट सी इट क्वार्टर. 3 months have gone by now. Time flies, and before you realize it's happened. So turnover नहीं increase हो रहा, it's a very clear indicator. For us, another indicator is production. If I'm not producing as much, I'm not selling as much. It's really as simple. So if I were producing, let's say 70 tons in the previous month, and the last 3 months have been between 70 and 75, that means you are stagnant. You should have gone from 70 to 80, 80 to 90, 90 to 100. That is the plan that you would made. And any little indication of stagnancy comes now, start questioning. Question yourself, question your team, question the market, question your vendors, start questioning. I think being extra, this is me again as an individual, being extra planned and being extra precautious is only extra work that you do. It never fails.
Yeah.
So extra मेहनत करने में तो कभी कुछ waste नहीं होता ना. थोड़ा सीखने को ही मिल गया.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think one thing that we should, as entrepreneurs, especially, and people in
Yeah,
startups, what should never be a moment of terror is the extra
yeah,
work that needs to be put in, because
100%.
and
It's too much fun putting in the extra work. You learn so much.
there's so much to learn, and it always just gives you that rush. Like for me, uh, those moments when you see that ठीक है वो short term में पता नहीं चलता उसका impact, but in the bigger picture when it starts showing up, those extra meetings, those extra moments of trying to
Yeah,
network and build that connection, and then trying to leverage those small things that eventually compound, I think
yeah,
they only are a part of the big picture thinking. Um,
100%.
I've had some interesting, incredible insights in this conversation so far, and I know कि जब हमने introductory call किया था तो उसमें तो और भी ज़्यादा था. There was a lot that came out in that conversation, and I would have loved to have that conversation also recorded and put
Yeah,
this across, stitched that into this interview too.
yeah.
Um, we're at a part where I want to now know more about you as a person, Aditi. That as an entrepreneur, what are some things and practices that keep you grounded, that keep you sane? Are there rituals, are there practices that you have that make you calm amidst all the chaos that driving a venture creates?
So for me, my manufacturing facility, my plant is my happy place. whether I'm not in the right headspace personally, whether I feel okay, listen, I've really failed as a mother today. I need some confidence boosting, or whether the times at work when you're just really struggling with the challenges. I feel every time I'm at the plant, I walk around, I talk to people. There's so much joy and love and happiness and dedication that I see there, and that makes you feel so good about what you're doing in life. It's a simple thing. You walk around and you see a girl who dropped a cookie on the floor, and then she picks it up and puts it in the dustbin. It's a very simple act, but you feel like she's understood that we're making a quality product and it's okay to discard rather than give that to a customer. That little things like that give you a kick. So every time not in the right frame of mind, being there makes me happy. Second, what I've realized is there are a certain set of team members you work with for 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, and you realize every time you are really troubled about something, go back to your team, share your troubles with them, and you will be amazed with the kind of help and value addition they can bring. And जब ये फाउंडर का गोल टीम का गोल हो जाता है ना, that is the only way it's ever going to work. And I feel very, very grateful that we have a solid team across the country. Wherever you share that, listen, this is what I'm struggling with, this is a challenge we are going to face soon, what are we going to do to fix it, they have all the answers. And they were just waiting for you to kind of say, go conquer the world. And that gives you a lot of joy. Third is, I think, my kids. Every time I feel okay, this nothing good is going to come right now, take some time, go play cricket with them, go play a game with them, do some coloring with them. They're 6 year olds, so obviously the activities that you do with them are more like a 6 year old would do. Or just go for a drive with them and hear their conversations of the things that happen in school,
Yeah.
and that makes me very, 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 very happy.
I loved the second point that you shared about going and sharing with the team, because I feel that a lot of startup founders refrain from doing that, including me a lot of times. And I know that somewhere for every founder, one of the biggest hesitation is that you don't want problems to translate into your team,
Yeah,
or you fear that it'll create an
yeah,
impact that you do not want it to create, so you defer or you restrain yourself from having those vulnerable conversations. But that's a very beautiful point that you made, um,
yeah.
and I'm sure it'll add a lot of value to a lot of founders. And as a part of the whole journey of being an entrepreneur, what are some traits that you feel are a must to develop an attitude, traits that you feel that anybody working in a startup, anybody developing, an entrepreneurship
Yeah.
vision or trying to be an entrepreneur, what are some traits in your journey that you have learned and that you feel are a must for entrepreneurs and founding teams to really have?
There's this new phrase that a lot of people use: don't work hard, work smart.
Hmm.
I don't agree. There is nothing in life that makes up for hard work. It's as simple. This hard work, yes, means a number of hours, but this hard work also means just be at it till the time you don't get what you want. These days, in our office, we have a small book club, and we've been reading a book which is based on the Mahabharata, in which there are stories that when Arjun was in his Vanvas, he did a lot of stuff preparing for the war, where he would pray to Shiva, where he would pray to Vishnu, where he would pray to different gods, saying, I want all these Divyastras, which is what I'm going to use in the war. This is his hard work. This is his prep for something that may happen 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. So there's no replacement to hard work, and there's no tapasya hai is hard work effectively. And I think as a founder, you need to realize this, and the team needs to realize. So when people say work smart, yes, work smart, but it also means work doubly hard, because now if you've saved some time, spend it somewhere else on work and bring value there too.
Yeah.
So that is one aspect I feel entrepreneurs need to know. Second is, the biggest disadvantage an entrepreneur you have is you don't have a boss to tell you or guide you or mentor you. And you have to be your own guide and own mentor, which is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
To tell yourself every day that, listen, you may have worked really hard, but these are the blunders that you've made in spite of working hard,
Yeah.
and not get demotivated to give up. It's not an easy job. But one must do this all the time, because the more we reflect, the more we introspect, the more we question ourselves and our team, the better the output. So there's no necessity for you, right? So there's no, matlab, why bother? As an entrepreneur, as a founding team, there's no one who's going to mentor you, no one who's going to critique you. You have to do it yourself. When you're doing it, if you feel a little bit miserable about yourself, that's okay, that's part of it. Identify where you went wrong and go forward again. The earlier we accept this reality that we do not have a mentor and we are our own mentees, or you ask people to mentor you, as in when you can find some source of inspiration, that is a major aspect I feel every entrepreneur and every founding team needs to do at whatever stage you may be at.
As a leader, there are multiple
Yeah,
ways that you coach, you try to lead the teams, that multiple things
yeah,
that, for some people, empathy is one of the biggest way that they
yeah,
lead teams. For some, it's more being a little more ruthless. So and of course there can be multiple tools that you use on a daily basis.
yes,
Some days you are like a coach, some days you are more ruthless,
yeah,
some days you're like very number driven. But as leaders we have a tendency to by default pick up something which, like, for me it's empathy, right? For me it's
yeah.
like trying to really understand my team.
Understood. Understood.
Where
I think I've,
from.
so I think the things that keeps me going and the thing that I feel I use as a tool for my company to keep going or my employees to keep going is objectivity. Let's just wait for the numbers or reality to tell us. There's no reason for you and me to dispute over something. If the numbers tell us a particular story, that is what the story is. That is what the fact is. If the number says we are performing well, trust it. If the number says we are not performing well, trust it too. And yes, you're right, there are days when you're strict with your team, there are days when you really handhold them and say, listen, I know you're struggling with it, let me help you do it. But to me, at the basis of all of this says, trust what the fact is. This is the fact, see the reality for what it is. And again, it comes back to this, no one's going to mentor you, so how do you mentor yourself? Just face the reality. This is the numbers that it says. If there are times when you love a product, so this has happened, there was a time when then I loved a product and we had to discontinue it, and I would say, okay, listen, this customer loves it, this is the story I've heard. What do your numbers tell you? If your numbers tell you it's not doing well, we must stop and we must move on.
Yeah, I think that's a great tool for entrepreneurs to definitely use. I'm going to try and use that more often than not. Uh, and we are now at a part where I want to ask you the question that the last CXO left. So we have a ritual in CXO Talks where every CXO that I speak with gets to pass on a question to the next CXO. So in a last episode, we had Meena Chabria, who is heading brand solutions for PVR. So the question that she has for you is that when do you think would you retire?
When do you think I would retire? Hopefully, never. I'll drive everyone crazy if I'm sitting at home. My parents will ask me to leave my kids anyways. Last week on a Monday I took the day off to be with them because I couldn't be with them on a Sunday, and they said, why are you home, can you please go to work? So hopefully I never have to retire. No, the whole fun in life comes in what you're doing now, so you don't want to take time off that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as long as you're loving what you're doing and enjoying every bit of it, having fun on the ride,
100%.
then yeah, there's no reason you would.
What else am I going to do? So many people ask you that if your company does really well, imagine you exit one day, what will you do? I said, I don't know. It's the worst thing to look at. If you exit from your company, even if you've made a lot of money, what do you do next day?
No, I definitely don't want they don't want you to exit because I know the passion that you have for quality ingredients
Yeah,
that gives me this yummy banana bread. I don't want that taste to go away.
yeah.
So please do not exit, uh, and do not retire. Uh, Now it's your turn. You had a question. Now it's your turn, Aditi, to pass on the question to the next CXO who will be there on CXO Talks.
Okay, so I think the question I have is, how long do you wait when you've made a mistake before you rectify it? What's a good time? A month, 3 months, 6 months? But how long when you first get this sense that there is something that's going wrong, and you wait before you actually take a real action on it?
Interesting. I'll definitely be passing on this question to the next
Yeah.
CXO.
We make a lot of mistakes, so it's very important for us
Yeah,
to know
every
this.
day. Every day there are
Every day,
days
na?
that we feel that maybe this could have been done another way. But yeah, I think as I savor the banana bread, I'll also savor this question. And like I say this to every CXO that I speak
Yeah,
with, that every time you ask a question to the next CXO, that's also a question that I ask myself. That's a question that
true.
gives me an insight to what I would do. And thank you so much for having this conversation with me on CXO Talks. I enjoyed it absolutely. And
I loved it.
I know
You're, you're so much fun to talk to.
I could have gone on, but I have to be also cautious of the time that the listeners would
True.
want to stick on for. But thank you so much again, and I hope to meet you in person super soon, whether here or in Ahmedabad or wherever.
Definitely.
And please continue bringing us the beautiful products from PBD because they keep us going. And thank you so much again.
Thank you so much. We had a lovely time today. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
3 months, 6 months. But how long when you first get this sense that there is something that's going wrong, and you wait before you actually take a real action on it?
Interesting. I'll definitely be passing on this question to the next
Yeah.
CXO.
We make a lot of mistakes, so it's very important for us
Yeah,
to know
every
this.
day. Every day there are
Every day,
days
na?
that we feel that maybe this could have been done another way. But yeah, I think as I savor the banana bread, I'll also savor this question. And like I say this to every CXO that I speak
Yeah,
with, that every time you ask a question to the next CXO, that's also a question that I ask myself. That's a question that
true.
gives me an insight to what I would do. And thank you so much for having this conversation with me on CXO Talks. I enjoyed it absolutely. And
I loved it.
I know
You're so much fun to talk to.
I could have gone on, but I have to be also cautious of the time that the listeners would
True.
want to stick on for. But thank you so much again, and I hope to meet you in person super soon, whether here or in Ahmedabad or wherever.
Definitely.
And please continue bringing us the beautiful products from PBD because they keep us going. And thank you so much again.
Thank you so much. We had a lovely time today. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.